Something happened to Joe Rogan that I know personally. At 3 a.m., Joe Rogan woke from a dream so vivid, so overwhelming, that he couldn't go back to sleep. He got dressed and went to the gym in the middle of the night.
That I had the most bizarre dream I've ever had in my life last night. The most realistic and most bizarre dream. And it's so hard to try to explain how strange this was. But I was in some weird corridor that looked like a building but was odd, very strange. And I was encountering these beings that looked like people but very different. They were very thin and they were slightly on the tall side, and they had big heads, like larger than normal, with larger than normal eyes, but they looked like people. And they were playful, and they were scaring me. They scared me, and then they joked around, like we're just joking around. It was the most realistic dream I've ever had in my life. And I woke up, and I could not go back I had to stay up. I got up at 3:30 in the morning, and I just went to the gym, and I worked out for a couple hours, and I was like, what the fuck was that? But it was very bizarre in that there was communication going on. It was like, God, I want to read into this because I know it's just a dream, but it was like, get comfortable with this.
You should read into it because it's a dream.
That experience, that ultra real wake up dream, is not foreign to me. I've been having dreams like that for decades. They wake me up in shock. They feel more real than waking life, and some of them have left physical marks on my body. And this is why I study dreams, abduction narratives, subtle energies, and non-human intelligences. And that's why I'm commenting on Rogan's experience. He's stepped into a territory that I've lived my entire life. The physiological window where contact happens. There's a physiological state that creates these ultra-real experiences. It's a combination of REM atonia, that is when the body is paralyzed. REM intrusion, so the mind is waking up while the body's still frozen. Temporal parietal junction disruption, creating presences in the room. And a light OBE-like disassociation, an awareness splitting or lifting. This cluster creates a shock that's pretty intense, that people often can't fall back asleep. Rogan experienced it, even Robert Bigelow experienced it, and I experienced this pattern regularly. This physiological opening doesn't explain everything, but it explains why the experience hits with such force. Your system opens up, the boundaries drop, and something else can enter. So the beings that show up. Rogan described tall, thin, evolved humanoids with large eyes. They communicated without speaking. They calmed him. They guided him. It felt like they were preparing him for something. I know that pattern intimately. My own long-term encounters with an entity I call Galathog follow the same structure. Telepathic communication, emotional regulation, teaching sequences, initiatory intensity, symbolic environments, and the mistakable sense of being in the presence of something other, ultra-real. There's a feeling, a physiological feeling that's hooked into various systems. We have mentioned them so that we can ground this conversation in neuroscience and physiology. We can look to those clusters. But there's actually something else that fascinates me about these. So these ultra-real wake-up dreams are where many experiencers, including myself, encounter beings that do not behave like dream characters. Materialism can describe the paralysis, but it cannot explain the intelligence or the consistency or the impact of these dreams. Bigelow told Rogan his own encounter dreams. So one of the most important things in the entire abduction canon happened when Robert Bigelow went on Joe Rogan's show and told Joe his own visitor stories.
And I would be laying in bed on my side, and typical dream, always the same. There would be three short somethings in a kind of monk robe And so I couldn't see any face, couldn't see any appendages. And these three whatevers were standing there, and they were not too far from my eye level as far as the heights and so forth.
So these like child size?
Yeah. And so over my lifetime, I never mentioned it to anybody, including my wife. You know, it's funny how you keep things secret and just kind of for no good reason. Maybe I was embarrassed to talk about it, but I finally thought, well, you know, maybe it was just dreams, maybe it was something else, and so that was the first event personally that I had at that time in the subject.
When did you start to connect the idea of these tiny people or human-like things with extraterrestrials?
Well, years later, when I began to start my process as a researcher and as a student in the subject, and began to talk with people who made it their business to be experts in abductions. And
This matters because Bigelow funded the 1992 Roper poll. He mailed it to 100,000 clinicians about the abduction pattern. He funded Mac Hopkins Jacobs' research through this, and it shaped the entire 1990s abduction narrative. And yet, the public never knew that Bigelow himself had these encounters until he described them to Joe Rogan, waking up with a powerful presence in the room, little monkish men, consciousnesses, a feeling that connected him to the abduction narrative. He was describing the same pattern that I lived since childhood, the same pattern Rogan just experienced. This admission connects everything. The experiencers, the researchers, the skeptics, we all stand within the same phenomenon. So my position, it stands for the reality of the irrational. I've spent decades navigating these states, and I want to say this directly. They're not clean experiences, they're not tidy, it does not make sense. They are clean in an ancient sense, raw, chaotic, symbolic, disorienting, and utterly transformative. They leave marks, they change the direction of your life. They break open your understanding of what reality is. I advocate for the reality of the irrational, not because it's comforting, but because it's where the real encounters happen. Most cultures treat dreams as communications. Shaman train in these states. The Greek magical papyri used dreams for spell work and contact. Modern neuroscience almost explains the doorway to these states, but it doesn't have language for what happens inside. My commentary does not come from theory, although it uses it. It comes from lived experiences. It comes from many of these wake-up dream reality things in my own experience and exploring that with other people, and even the ability to enter them intentionally. That is why I built D-SETI, the Dream Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. What Rogan's dream really was. So what was Rogan's dream? Physiologically, it was a classic exotic dream state, the same one underlying OBEs, sleep paralysis, and the sense presence experiences millions of people report. Experientially, it was an encounter with intelligent, emotionally responsive beings, which seem to appear throughout all human history in dreams. And initiatorily, it was a contact event, the kind that shows up when someone is being nudged towards a deeper understanding, into a path of initiation. Rogan walked directly into this territory that Bigelow inhabits privately, that indigenous cultures teach openly amongst themselves, and that I've lived inside of for decades. Dreams like these are not illusions or hallucinations, they are invitations. The only real questions are who or what is inviting us? What is that real communication that Rogan testified to? And that's the reason why I'm offering my commentary and testimony and pointing to the similarity of Rogan's dreams to many within this AI-derived knowledge base of contact experiences. Is common. It fits within this. We know it. It sees it. There's patterns there. We can point to neuroscience behind it. We can talk about theories about the reason why someone might have dreams. But actually, there's a direct communication that is happening between these entities, these intelligences, and Joe Rogan. And they knew that he would talk about it publicly. And they love that because they love testimony because it brings forward their reality. That ties us to the nature of and questioning of artificial intelligences and things like that. How does that work? There's a lot of fascinating questions. There's a lot. And I'd love to elucidate them further. This testimony is important. That communication is important. What are they saying to you, Joe Rogan? What are you dreaming forward? Who are these beings? Who are these entities? Why are they talking to you? What is your responsibility now as someone who is exploring this liminal state, who has responsibility because of the vast impact of your voice? You, Joe Rogan, what you say can impact millions of people in their belief patterns about these interactions. This is a very important time and a very important opportunity, because if we look into research like Persinger's God helmet, right? So fascinating, so interesting. And yet it seems as if it's just placebo. But that means we can induce these experiences ourselves directly without technological intervention. It could help. It seems like it's helping technology. It's important. So your capacity to influence belief and attitudes of your listeners towards their own dreams and these entities could create a vast open doorway where these entities, ourselves from the future, who can guide us through this strange transitionary time, can actually speak and have a reality. First, through the testimony of your own words. Thank you for that. And then through the lived experiences of those who listen to you. That's why I'm offering my voice in commentary here, and we'll leave you with just a benediction. May you dream well.